Welcome to the Ringer NBA Mock Draft 2.0. I'm your host, John Gonzalez. I'm joined by Kevin O'Connor and Jonathan Tjarks. We're going to take you through an entire first round 30-pick mock draft. These guys have already done some good prep work on it. By virtue of a coin toss, was it a coin toss? We did a coin toss.
A virtual coin toss.
A virtual coin toss before the draft started. Kevin O'Connor gets the first pick. A lot of mystery here. I have no idea which way he's going to go.
I am not going to go crazy like Alvin Gentry did in the draft room. However, I am taking Zion Williamson for the New Orleans Pelicans. Freshman from Duke, a guy who defies gravity with his athleticism, but also brings a lot of skills on the floor, Gonz, with his ability to play in the pick and roll as a ball handler or as a screener, switch across positions. Like, what more do you want in today's league than a superb athlete like Zion who can play across positions and do different things for you offensively?
Yeah, this is a foregone conclusion. Everybody knows it's going to be Zion. There has been some debate, though, about whether or not Zion wants to be there and whether or not this makes it more or less likely that the Pelicans and new president of basketball operations, David Griffin, will want to move Anthony Davis as a result of that. What do you think about this pairing with this group if they have Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis and Zion?
Yeah, my first thought was, oh, now they can trade AD and go young around Zion. But then I was like, well, wait a minute. What are the odds you ever get a player this good with Zion? Like zero, right?
Yeah.
Like if you ever get two generational talents in the same team, how can you not at least try it just to see what happens?
I would want to take a shot at it, right? I mean, like stick them together, because what happens if all of a sudden Zion goes in and they've got Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis and they click and all of a sudden they like playing well together? Maybe Anthony Davis reconsiders wanting to move on from the Pelicans.
You have to give it an opportunity, and based off everything I've heard, based off what I saw in the lottery room that night, they're gonna. Alvin Gentry was saying to people how AD's under contract until July 2020, and David Griffin, everything he said publicly to the media afterwards supported that. The Pelicans are going to head into the summer with the intentions of pairing AD with Zion Williamson, and odds are, unless AD shows some serious indications that he's out no matter what, they're going to take this into the season, because as Tjarks said, what are the odds you're going to get a player that's ever as good as AD to pair with Zion Williamson? This is their chance to build a strong core that at some point could compete for championships.
Also, by the way, David Griffin's now won the lottery 4 times in like 6 years. That
He's
man,
a good lucky charm.
Luck is something is going on.
He's a good lucky
there.
charm. All right, so Zion #1 to the Pelicans as expected. Now, who knows? #2 on the board.
Well, actually, Memphis is pretty much locked in with Ja Morant. They pretty much said it already, and so like that's Ja Morant, Murray State point guard will be going #2.
Which I like the idea of Ja Morant and Memphis all of a sudden sort of rebooting the idea of Mike Conley and Marc Gasol on the fly with Triple J. Your guy who you loved last year, you were way higher on him than a lot of people, and Ja Morant. I want to bring this up because Kevin O'Connor, our resident hand truther, in our mock draft, which you can find on theringer.com, an excellent website, by the way. I highly recommend it. It says that he is a natural, let me get this right. He
is a natural lefty.
Lefty, but he shoots righty.
right-handed.
I didn't want to juxtapose those two things. Kevin O'Connor, I could smell you writing that. Like your scent is all over that evaluation.
Because of who?
Because of one Ben Simmons, who,
Yes.
by the way, leave the kid alone. He's 22 years old. Tell us about Ja, what you think about him, and why don't you think he should be shooting with the hand that he's shooting with?
Well, Ja Morant, I think he's shooting with a fine hand. He's more ambidextrous, unlike Ben Simmons, who is a right-handed player. With Ja Morant, he is somebody who he's going to be a success in the league. With his playmaking ability, his ability to see the floor, there's no doubt he's going to be in the league for quite a long time. And he's a great athlete who can get to the rim, score at the basket, finish explosively. The question with him is going to be the development of his jump shot off the dribble from the perimeter. And it's the type of thing with him, that's what separates good point guards from great point guards. If he's an average shooter, well, he's probably just going to be good. If he develops a knockdown jumper, and there are some positive indicators that he can, he's great from the free throw line, he has touch around the rim, finishing with either hand, and on floaters. There's positive indicators there. The question is going to be with changing his low shooting release and bringing that a little bit higher, I think, for him.
Tjarks, the idea, I think, consensus-wise, is that eventually they're going to want to move on from Mike Conley. They're rebooting the franchise here, but in the interim, let's say that it might take them a second to move on from Conley. Can they play these two guys side by side?
I think so. I mean, so Ja, as his freshman year at Murray State, played more off the ball. He was more of a caretaker point guard. Ja's a very versatile player. I think because of how he played this year, where he was doing like Russell Westbrook stuff at the rim, people got this idea of him as like a ball-dominant point guard, but he can play off the ball too.
He can play off the ball. I think the question with him is like defensive versatility. Like that's going to be a problem for him with Conley. But ultimately, it's like He's a young point guard. It's okay. It's okay. Maybe he grows into it.
If you're Memphis, you're not worrying about playoff matchups.
Of course,
like whatever.
Exactly.
I'm team free Mike Conley. I want to see good things for him. Send him to a contender. The young kids can grow together. Mike Conley can go off and maybe win some basketball games somewhere. The New York Knicks on the clock with pick number 3.
We're going with Zion's teammate, R.J. Barrett, freshman from Duke. R.J. is a super big point guard, 6'8", more of a wing. I think with him, the question moving forward is going to be, how does this jumper develop? Which is going to be the conversation with a lot of guys in this year's draft. But also his decision-making needs to improve. And that's been the big knock on him during the pre-draft season here and during the entire college season. But I think he showed enough as a playmaker that I think he brings some playmaking potential for him with size to see over the defense, in addition to the fact that this dude just plays his ass off. And he's somebody who can get to the rim, can create on the perimeter. He has a lane to be a go-to scorer who can also pass long-term. But there's just some flaws that are pretty serious that do need to be solved before he ever gets to that point.
I watched some workout videos of him and sold. Anybody dribbling a basketball or dunking a basketball in a gym by himself, I immediately think should go to the top of the board. Some of the comps that we have for him on our Ringer mock draft and Kevin O'Connor's big board here: Jalen Rose, Harrison Barnes, Rudy Gay. My favorite, Alpha Andrew Wiggins, which brings me to my question.
They're both
for you.
Canadians.
They're both Canadians, but the alpha part I think is an interesting component. We're not doing any trades with this, but theoretically, if they kept him and also added somebody like Kyrie and or KD, how would that alpha component pair with maybe a superstar who's already established?
That is the question with RJ, is like, A, can he play off the ball, and B, will he be willing to?
Right.
And I wonder if New York gets those 2 stars, is this pick up for sale for anyone who wants to trade up for him? Do they want to get more of a win-now player?
I think that the Knicks should do some Knicks stuff. I would really enjoy them just being the Knicks and mucking up this whole thing and like maybe trading a bunch of players or barring that, keeping a bunch of players who don't fit well together. I'm rooting for weird stuff to happen for the Knicks because it always does. Pick number 4 goes to you and the Lakers.
Okay, I'm going to stick with the Duke guys. I'm going to give them Cam Reddish. He's a clutch sports guy, so he's on LeBron's team already. I think he's got Cam Reddish had a very up and down freshman season. He's got some big questions about his decision-making ability. But I just wonder, you look at him in a pre-draft workout, he's 6'8", 6'9", he can really shoot it, and he just kind of fits your your check box of 3-and-D wings.
I really like our Ringer draft board, and some of the comps for Reddish are Paul George, and then also bigger Ben McLemore, which I couldn't decide if that was like a backhanded compliment or not. How do we feel?
I don't think it's even a compliment at all.
Is it at all a compliment? Maybe not.
I think the reason why I went with bigger Ben McLemore.
Oh, this is your doing.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the reasons why is with Ben McLemore, he was somebody who entered the draft as a raw prospect who brought athleticism and theoretical potential as a 3-and-D guy. He could become a great 3-point shooter. He could become a great defender. And with Cam Reddish, that's the conversation moving forward. I have him ranked 7th on my board. Tjarks, I believe you have him 11th on your board. So we're a little bit lower on him personally, as we have him going here 4th. But I entered the season loving him as a prospect.
He's an empty gym all-star for sure. You watch him play for like 10 minutes and you're just like, man.
And the one thing that's I think got a little bit overlooked of him is like the difficulty of being the 3rd wheel behind RJ Barrett and Zion Williamson. 2 guys who can't space the floor quite as much, 2 guys who dominate the ball. Cam Reddish didn't excel in that role, but it was his first time in it. And it's something that
But here's the thing, in the NBA, that's going to have to happen.
Well, that's what I want to, we're just going to make this a 5-hour mock draft, and it's already gone off the rails because I have questions about this. Okay, so you're talking about him being a 3rd wheel. If he goes to the Lakers, and if the Lakers don't do some maneuvering with a front office that is in complete and total and utter and constant disarray, what happens with a Cam Reddish who would be paired with LeBron and all of these other young guys who are all fighting for space and oxygen?
Here's the thing, I think with Cam, it's good to grow into that role. I want the game simplified for him, where your role was defend, play hard on defense, and on offense, spot up from 3, attack closeouts, and make the right pass off the dribble. Simple for Cam Reddish early in his career while he develops his skills over time, improving his ball handling. He loses his dribble far too often. It gets stronger so he can become better finishing around the rim and also just continue mastering his jump shot. I think while he develops, simplifying his role will allow him to contribute when he's young, but still have the potential to enter that upper echelon of his potential comps, a Paul George type. He may not get there, but he can still play a role when he's young.
And my guess is, though, for fit here, this is also a big move, this pick. This is a pick for the rest of the league, I'd imagine.
I, again, hope that they don't move it and that they just clog up their roster, because if we know anything about Lakers fans, they're always patient. It's going to go great. Pick number 5, you've got the Cavs.
Taking Jarrett Culver, a wing from Texas Tech. Yes. I think when you're thinking about fit, this isn't necessarily why you're making the pick here. Culver is my 4th ranked prospect. I would like this pick for Cleveland regardless of the roster. But next to Colin Sexton, you need a guy who can defend multiple positions, a guy who can spot up from 3, a guy who makes smart plays off the dribble. And Jarrett Culver checks all of those boxes as a good all-around player, as a building block piece next to Colin Sexton.
Yeah, I think with some of these teams like the Cavs too, and you know, we saw Jarrett Culver throughout the NCAA and NCAA tournament and made a name for himself. And I think you're right, like fit-wise, with teams like the Cavs, with some of these lower level teams that are resetting, best player available, no?
I mean, there's no fit to have, really. It's just Sexton. The rest of the roster is up for grabs.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. All right, you've got the Suns on the clock at 6.
Okay, I'm going to go with Darius Garland, the point guard from Vanderbilt. He's also a clutch sports guy, and he only played 5 games this year. Then he tore his meniscus, he was shut down, and he apparently has a promise. A lot of folks think it's Phoenix, and I could totally see Darius Garland Booker as like a Dame CJ kind of thing. 2 guards who shoot threes, get up a lot of points, move the ball.
This has sort of like a whiff of Kyrie college career to it, where you're like taking it on, I guess, faith that he's going to be what you thought he was going into college and then coming out.
Yeah, I think with Garland, I actually saw him live in one of the couple games that he played this season when he faced USC. And Garland, I think there's a chance that he ends up the best point guard in this draft. When you think about what's important in today's league, perimeter shooting, with Garland, he enters the league a better shooter than Ja Morant, a better guy at creating his shot off the dribble from the perimeter. And that's a premium skill in today's league, as we saw in the playoffs. From team to team, Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, not saying Garland can reach that level, but he's in that same mold, whereas Ja Morant is in more of the Wall, Westbrook type of mold as a point guard. Garland needs to improve a lot of things moving forward, but the shot on the perimeter gives him a chance to be the best guard.
Yeah, he's the smallest guard. It's interesting to see like what'll be more important for these guards going forward. Is it really just shooting, or is it the whole package?
And you're okay again with the side by side with Booker, like you think
they're going to struggle on defense.
So I want point Booker all the time. I want ball dominant, high usage.
I think so does
James
Devin.
Harden. Yes, that's what I'm saying. I want that, and I worry about what this would do. My son's heads out there know what I'm talking about.
I don't buy that with Booker though. Booker.
You're out on that.
No. With Booker though, in college and in high school, he was a guy who was used more off screens, a guy who is great at attacking closeouts, an off-ball player. And I think someone like Garland, granted they would struggle defensively, you would unleash that aspect of Booker's game and make him a better overall player than he already is. It's just a great on-ball force.
I hope that happens. It's getting real now, by the way. He took off his jacket. Later on, KOC's going to take some clothes off. We're going to be mostly naked by the end of this thing.
Stick around.
Stick around. We're up to the Bulls at pick number 7, KOC.
Let's go with one of the stars of the NCAA tournament, DeAndre Hunter, a forward from Virginia. Hunter's a guy that I don't love as a prospect.
Okay, great.
He's just kind of bland to me.
Congratulations, Bulls fans.
However, with Hunter, he's a potential versatile defender with a 7'2" wingspan, a real strong, beefy frame. I think about him next to Lauri Markkanen in the front court, small ball lineups with Markkanen and Hunter at the 5. And I get excited about those guys because Hunter, granted, he projects more of a 3-and-D guy who's off the ball. He does show some flashes occasionally off the dribble, and I would like to see inverse pick and rolls of Markkanen setting screens or handling, then with Hunter screening or setting screens. I think the Bulls can get creative with those.
Well, it's interesting though, because like the Bulls they drafted Wendell Carter, they're paying $1 billion to Levine and Porter, and now they have Lauri. So if you draft Hunter, like he's automatically going to be a bench player for your team. And does that even matter? I don't know.
Unless you play big.
And it's
who's the point guard then?
Still got to figure that out.
They're figuring out a lot of things in Chicago. It's interesting that you mentioned that you're not crazy about Hunter. You're even less crazy about him. You have him 5 on your big board. You have him 12.
I just think I see Harrison Barnes. And like I've been like burned by Harrison Barnes watching him in the Mavs.
Harrison Barnes is a professional basketball player. The Bulls could use some of those. No,
yeah, I just
you'll add him to the council thing where the community council that the Bulls have, where they hash things out. He'll be great.
I think Harrison Barnes on a winning team, though, as we saw in Golden State, he's not that star player, but he is a guy who can be pretty important in a complementary role.
Yeah, I just think a 3-and-D guy like that is available later in the draft.
So you'd rather take a swing?
Yeah.
Take a swing. We go to the Hawks, which is suddenly a team that has suddenly become a favorite here at Hipster Ringer NBA HQ. That pick goes to you. I'm interested to see what you're going to do with that.
Yeah, I feel like the Hawks really want Reddish. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get up for him. I've got him taking SEKOU DOUMBOUYA as a French kid, 18-year-old, really raw player, very big and athletic. We have him as like an Al-Farouq Aminu-ish, but he's got a better jump shot than that. He's got a very high ceiling. The question is, how ready is he to play right away in the NBA?
How would he fit with their young pieces with Huerter and Trae Young and what they're trying to develop? Do we like, I mean, are you, this is something you and I haven't talked about. I know where, again, the hipster component of the Ringer stands on the Hawks. Everybody loves the Hawks.
I love the Hawks.
You're on board with the Hawks too.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love the trade. Luka Doncic for Trae Young
did?
pick. Yeah, I mean,
The Hawks have evidently, but outside of Atlanta.
But they still are building something that's pretty special with a lot of nice young players on their roster. Kevin Huerter, John Collins, and then if they were to get someone like DOUMBOUYA, as you said, Tjarks, he does project as an Aminu type, but he did show recently in a 34-point outing the potential that some people saw when he was 15, 16 years old as a guy who can score off the dribble. So I think there's an outside chance long term that he ends up being one of those guys we look back at and are like, how did he fall to 8? How did he fall to 10? Because he does have the body at 6'9" with a long wingspan to defend multiple positions, and maybe if the shot continues developing, being a guy who can score off the bounce for you.
Before we move on, and I'm not going to just keep reading all of the shades of comparisons for each player, but this one really deserves it. Tranquilized Pascal Siakam. Bravo to whichever one of you guys came up. I mean, just killing it.
This guy
KOC is absolutely murdering this. Where are we here?
That's a compliment, though. It is. It's a compliment. I mean, Pascal tries hard, but like he would be a good player even if he didn't try hard.
It's a compliment to your brain and how clever you are. Let's go to the Wiz, and that's still a basketball team. They're still having basketball in BC. Joe House, I think, and all of our Wizards heads here, Chris Almeida, all of our Wizards heads here at the Ringer would probably prefer that they don't at this point, but they've decided not to disband the franchise, so they're going to pick at 9.
That's KOC, actually.
Oh, no, they're going to pick at 9. You should. You sit here. I'll sit over there.
So they're still figuring out their GM situation in Washington.
Yeah, they need one of those too.
I mean,
they're going to select an executive with this pick.
Happily make the pick for him. Goga BITADZE.
Love it.
A 6'11" big man who plays for Mega overseas. He's from Georgia originally. Goga is somebody who right now is considered a mid to late first-round draft pick, but I would expect him through workouts to rise up into the lottery. But when you consider the fact that he's improved so much at such a young age right now, he's improved defensively this past season, but offensively, that's why you're taking him as a guy who can pass the ball, who can space the floor. He's not quite a Nikola Jokic type of player. He's not that level of a passer.
You have him closer to a Nurkic.
A Nurkic type, but he's a very good player who I think can survive in today's NBA defensively, but also bring a lot offensively for you.
I mean, to me, like, I think 10 years ago, he's a top 5 pick, Goga. Yeah. But in terms of, like, he's never going to be a switchable center, so there's always a ceiling on him.
Oh, right, because the way that the NBA has changed playing styles. But I was thinking about, like, this is generally speaking a weaker draft than previous years, right?
That's kind of the consensus, but I feel like there's always a chance, right? You never know who's, like, Pascal Siakam was 27 2 years ago.
I was talking with somebody who does draft evaluations recently, and they said to me, with the guys he works with, so you're telling me it's a 2-player draft? Okay, find me the 3rd guy, find me the 4th guy, because there's always that type of player. Right. And BITADZE is that type where maybe, as you said, Tjarks, there's a ceiling on him because of the defensive limitations, because of the fact that in today's league, you got to be able to switch. But I think he brings enough offensively to bring significant value to a team where at this point in the draft, BITADZE can be a good player for the Wizards.
It's had big problems too. I mean, they had a chunk of time there where Gortat was good for them, and then like before
well, they got
and after that,
making $100 million or something.
Yeah. And that's another reason why they're looking for an executive. Back to you. The Hawks are once again on the board.
This is the pick they got for the Mavs for that Luka trade. And then I'm gonna have them taking NASSIR Little from UNC. My idea is, like, if you have Trae Young and you give them a bunch of athletes, and you say, Trae Young's thinking for you, Trae make him easy for you, spot up, I'll hit you open shots.
And yet, you personally are not very high on him. You have him 23rd on your big board.
Yeah, I don't really love his feel for the game or his jumper, but I feel like he's a guy with a good point guard. Like a good point guard can make or break a guy like NASSIR Little. He's not really a guy who's going to do his own thing out of an offense.
Where are you on this?
I have him ranked 11th on my board, so right around the area where he's being taken here. I think Little presents a lot of value as a guy who is a top-ranked high school prospect who just disappointed at North Carolina. there's concern, like Tjarks said, his feel's not great, but I still think with his body and his wingspan and projecting ahead, the fact he was a late bloomer in high school, maybe he'll be a late bloomer in his professional career too.
We go to the Minnesota Timberwolves on the board at number 11.
Let's go with Brandon Clarke,
my guy,
who is a big man / forward type from Gonzaga. Clarke is somebody you love, Tjarks. You have him ranked second.
On his board.
I have him ranked 10th, and I think he's the inverse of BITADZE, who we just talked about, in the sense that he's a switchable, versatile defender, an elite athlete who can block shots, switch screens, defend on the perimeter. And then offensively, the question for him will be developing his jump shot and proving that's something that he can effectively space the floor with. But even if he doesn't, he's somebody who can set screens for you, be a clean-up man around the rim. I think he's going to be a quality NBA player for a long time.
I have questions for you about, you are obviously extremely high on him. Last year, Jaren Jaxson Jr. was a guy that you were very high on, higher than I think like anybody else at the Ringer, and it perked up my radar that you were so in love with him. Similarly here, this is not for the faint of heart.
He's no Jaren
ranking.
Jaxson, I'll say that.
But
Jaren Jaxson
like
is
him.
a superstar. I like Brandon Clarke. I think if he goes to Minnesota and plays with Karl Towns, he's going to be amazing. Like, this has to happen. Like, get him to 11.
You're on board, and
because he needs a stretch big man to be his best version of himself.
So you could envision them playing side by side. You move.
Oh, absolutely.
Starting
100%.
lineup and then
starting 4. It's like, to me, like, Clarke could be Andre Robertson who scores 15 points a game. Like a really versatile offensive player who dominates defensively.
They're, reconfiguring things in Minnesota. He's available for consultation. We're gonna go to the Hornets at 12. That's you.
Oh, I'm my other guy in this draft, COBY White, UNC. First of all, they love UNC players in Charlotte. Michael always drafts close to home. I kind of think Kemba's leaving.
I was gonna say, in this scenario, is Kemba staying or going?
I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, but I feel like Kemba's going to go at that point. Well, slide him White as the combo point guard.
And you also, COBY is another guy that you're super high on, higher than most on. You have him 4, you have him 15.
Yeah.
What do you think about COBY?
I think with COBY White, there's no doubt that he's somebody who can shoot off the catch. He's super speedy, fastest guy in the draft, and he plays hard. But the question for me with him at that point, at like 4 or 5 range, I prefer him where he's going here because of the shooting off the dribble. That's a question with a low shooting release, if he's capable of creating off the bounce at a level necessary to be a go-to scoring type. With that said, if he can be a spot-up guy, that's fine. But him getting his shot blocked a lot, it's about setting your expectations for what he's gonna offer for you as an offensive player.
And I think with COBY, he's a guy in 4 or 5 years. He's so much bigger than most point guards, and he's really fast, and he's already got a good spot-up shot. I think his baseline is high. I think he could really rise. He's very raw right now, though.
He was fun to watch. As somebody who admittedly watches limited college basketball, when you were talking about how speedy he is, he's just a fun human being to watch play basketball.
He's got a great fro.
Great look. I'm rooting for him. And right now, somewhere with Nas Little and COBY White going super close to each other, Tate Frazier, he's beside himself. He's a puddle. He'll be of no use to anybody after this. Let's go to the first of many. How many picks of the Celtics? No, we're going to the Heat. We're going to the Heat next. That's your pick, Miami.
For the post-Hassan Whiteside era, Grant Williams.
Yes.
Forward, big man from Tennessee. He's more of a glue guy type, and that's a compliment, not an insult.
That's something that they would like in Miami.
Grant Williams is somebody who can potentially defend multiple positions. He's somebody who can spot up for you, attack off the dribble, can play make for you. He's a versatile all-around player who I think maybe there's a little bit too much overlap next to Justice Winslow, but I think Grant Williams is a winning player for a Miami Heat franchise that has drafted a lot of them historically, so it makes sense for them.
You mentioned post-Hassan world. Is that going to happen, or is that?
He has 1 year left, right?
1 year left after the season.
They would be thrilled to get off of Hassan Whiteside.
No, that's not going to happen.
And Hassan Whiteside, I think, would probably like to be relocated at this point, especially when towards the end of the season, and then not in the postseason this year, but postseason last year, when Hassan Whiteside becomes unplayable. And
he's kind of unplayable all the time.
It's unbelievable that he got that deal, and things just changed so quickly for him. This is a better pick for them. This is something that could help them move forward out of that area.
I like Grant Williams. He's a really smart player. He fits the Heat culture. I think he has a lot of room to grow as a three-point shooter. I think he could be a real steal at 13.
That would be wonderful. Now we move on to, quite frankly, the dreaded Boston Celtics. Nobody here likes the Boston Celtics or ever has. They have a zillion picks. That's your pick.
I'm going to give them P.J. Washington from Kentucky. I really like this guy.
Is he bad? I hope he's bad.
I think he's going to be pretty good. This is one of my guys.
Totally unbiased.
I feel like he's a big man with a lot of perimeter skills. He can kind of play inside and out. I think he's got a little like Paul Millsap into his game. I'm a fan of his. And I think they'll take the best available player here at 14.
This was the Kings pick that the Sixers didn't keep because it didn't go top 1 overall. That was involved in the Fultz trade. Tjarks is higher on PJ Washington than you are. As our resident Boston expert, what do you think about this for a big offseason coming for the Boston Celtics where there's a lot of things in flux?
I think PJ Washington makes a lot of sense, especially if you're thinking about post-Al Horford. Depending on what happens with him this offseason with his player option. Whether or not he re-signs in Boston, like Tjarks said, Washington is a potential versatile big who can also space the floor, and that's what you want in today's league. Like, Washington checks all the boxes of a guy who you look at and it's like, again, how did he fall so far?
We go to the Pistons at 15, which is your pick. Aside from, like, unless you're going to give Blake Griffin a healthy body.
I would love to do that.
I would love to Germany. That's what they need.
Wouldn't that be great?
He'll get the platelet enrichment therapy, but they're going to need to pick somebody here. They could use some backcourt help. Which way are you going?
Let's go with ROMEO Langford, a guard from Indiana. Guard, wing type, 6'7". He's somebody who he projects as a scoring type of wing. And I think for the Pistons, it's really just an upside pick here. I don't love Langford as a player, but I think he's shown enough on the offensive end with the potential with his long wingspan defensively to maybe long-term be a good two-way player.
How do you feel about, I mean, adding in Langford here theoretically, the Pistons, they go and they trade for Blake Griffin and they get just enough to make the playoffs, and then things sort of deteriorate from there. They've got a lot of work to do, especially and always in the backcourt.
It's just tough. They have so much money to ready Jaxson and Andre Drummond. Yeah. Like if those guys were on the market now, I don't know what kind of money they would get, but it'd be a lot less what they make now.
Not as much.
They're really boxed in with their roster. It's a tough situation.
It is a tough situation. I'm rooting for our guys in Detroit. Like they got that new arena and they want to put people into it. See how it goes for them. We moved to the Magic. Kevin Clark's Orlando Magic. He was wandering around here as we were filming this. You guys didn't see him. He was off camera. I think he's ready to come down from the rafters if we don't give him somebody he likes.
Somewhere around here.
The Orlando Magic with pick 16 in the 2019 NBA draft.
I'm going to give them NICKEIL Alexander-Walker from Virginia Tech. I think they really need shooting. He's got kind of the long arm frame they like. Cousin of SGA, our big star last year.
Also, that he's one of the comps on our draft board here. The Magic also have, for a while now, needed backcourt help. Who was it? Was it 2 years ago when they tweeted out at the end of the season?
Oh, the Shelvin Mack thing.
They tweeted out, congratulations to Shelvin Mack for being our assist leader, and he averaged like negative 1,000 assists. And
now they have your guy. They got your guy now.
They have a former #1 pick.
They've got, well, for a while there, they had MCW and Fultz. So that's really just the perfect cross-section of bad Sixers former guards. So good luck. I actually do hope it works out for Fultz.
I do. I'm rooting for him.
How do you like this pick?
I think it makes a lot of sense for them. I think Alexander Walker, he's a little lean. I'm not sure how great he can be defensively with his body type, but he's a solid, smart player who's improved as a ball handler and a passer. I like him as an overall player in today's league.
In theory, and this is obviously like you got to really put your imagination cap on. If Fultz is able to play,
if he becomes the guy we're expecting?
Not the guy we're expecting, but also not the guy we've seen so far. Somewhere in the middle, how would they pair with each other?
Great, perfect. I mean, Fultz, the appeal with him was somebody who can be an on-the-ball guy or an off-the-ball guy, and Alexander Walker, with his playmaking potential, he's same thing, interchangeable. And I think in today's league, as many guys that you can have on the court who can handle, who can make plays off the dribble and spot up and shoot, the better off you're going to be, and Alexander Walker could fit that mold.
And I wonder if Fultz becomes Sean Livingston, it would make sense to have guys who can shoot around him. That might be his path going forward.
I mean, at this point, that would be amazing for him, and he would take that in a heartbeat. And I would just like to see him get out there regularly. We go to the Brooklyn Nets at number 17.
Let's stick with another Washington player, Matisse Thybulle. Thybulle is somebody who projects more of a 3-and-D style player, so maybe it's a little high for that when these guys tend to fall. But I think for the Brooklyn Nets, regardless of what happens with them this summer, whether they have a big offseason with trades or signings, Thybulle's somebody who can fit in anywhere, and I think with Kenny Atkinson's offense, Thybulle can contribute right away because of his defense. He's a potential elite defender.
So 2 questions about that. I know that the defense that he played was mostly zone in college. Obviously, that's going to change up in the NBA. And beyond that, the Nets have a lot of guards. So how do you like this fit for them?
I wonder though, right? Like D'Angelo's a free agent this summer. We'll see what happens.
You think that might be it for him?
Well, if they get like Kyrie in there, they're not going to play Kyrie and D'Angelo Russell together.
That's true, but I mean, for me, the easy thing to do is you just went and traded for D'Angelo. It obviously has worked out. He made an all-star team. Like, are you going to unplug him and gamble on Kyrie, who lately has been volatile, shall we say? Like, to put it politely?
They've got a lot of moving parts right now.
They do.
And they always play small. They can always find room for a Thibault to play as a 3 or 4.
He can fit anywhere.
We go to the Indiana Pacers with pick 18.
I'm going to give them Rui Hachimura from Gonzaga. I feel like they really have a type. They like older players from big programs, high character guys. I think he really fits their culture. And he's just a very safe pick I think they're going to make here.
They like safe. They're going to get Depot back. This is a team that was in the mix even without Depot. Yes, they were under 500 without him, and they sort of limped into the playoffs. But I thought that they were even, that they were even in that 3-4-5 mix so consistently without Depot really said a lot about them. So to add somebody here that could step into a rotation spot would be beneficial for them. Although, I want to ask you again about your description. You have him listed as washed Carmelo, which I think was pretty great.
I mean,
these are really fantastic.
I mean, the reason why is because Rui is lost on defense.
You missed your calling. You should be doing like Bazooka Joe comics or something.
Like with
it's really good.
I mean, it's the type of thing with Rui Hachimura. Like, there's no doubt he has potential to be a good offensive player, but the defense is seriously concerning. And Indiana would be great for him, though. It's a defensive culture there. Miles Turner protecting the rim with Oladipo on the perimeter. Maybe he grows into his body. He has size, he has length. Maybe long term he ends up surpassing expectations and what he's been so far in college.
Do you think they make a move this summer, Indiana? Like, kind of going on someone?
Got to use that cap space somehow.
All right, let's go to number 19, the San Antonio Spurs.
This is Talon Horton-Tucker, a guard, wing, forward type. I mean, he's only 6'4", but has a 7'1" wingspan, really a beefy body. Horton-Tucker.
I love when you talk beefy bodies.
I mean,
we're all growing into our bodies.
I mean, he's thick with 2 C's.
I told you, we're taking off clothes, we're talking about beefy bodies. This is like Ringer After Dark over here.
With Horton-Tucker, he's an upside play for the Spurs here, a chance to land a guy who could be a boomer bust player. I don't love Horton-Tucker as a prospect, but I think for the Spurs, it's worth taking a swing on a guy with his potential as an offensive player, and when you project forward with his length and strength to be a versatile defensive player, maybe San Antonio can turn him into something.
See, because guys like this, I wonder. I feel like guys who are overweight in college, it's almost like a hidden benefit, because like if he gets in shape, all of a sudden he's a better player. And theoretically in the NBA, it gets you in shape.
In theory. But then there's a lot of dad bods out there in the NBA who, like, you know, sometimes they don't pare themselves down, or even you see somebody like Joel Embiid who's supremely talented, but when he's not on the floor, all of a sudden has a hard time keeping himself in shape. And I think there's some guys who are wired to just be fit, and the NBA makes them more so. And I sometimes worry about the guys who go into the league who aren't thinking that way.
I don't even know with him is if he's quote unquote out of shape. He's just thick. He's just got
soft.
He just got a big body. And with him, like, to me, if San Antonio were to ever draft him, that's exactly what you want for a guy whose jumper is shaky. It's an opportunity to work with Chip England, who has helped the jump shots of many players in the past. Of course, most notably Kawhi Leonard. He can help his jumper out, become more of a spot-up shooter who can make some plays off the dribble as a passer. I think Horton-Tucker, if San Antonio drafts him, would be in a best-case scenario for the player.
How would you feel about the Spurs prospects moving forward, potentially eventually out of the Greg Popovich era with Murray and Lonnie Walker?
It's kind of exciting, right? It's a very different kind of team, right? Like up and down, a lot of young wings who can move around. I'd be fun to watch that.
Next era of Spurs basketball, we go back to the Boston Celtics, who have another pick. This should be illegal at 20. Who are they going with?
So I've got him taking Jaxson Hayes, Texas big man. I'm thinking right here, so he's fallen in our mock draft compared to where most things are having him going. And I'm thinking Boston's already made the 14th pick. They only have so many rookies in their team. I think this pick is up for sale. I think it's going to be traded.
They have a lot of picks that they could package. Again, as we said, it's a critical offseason for them. There's so many different ways that Danny Ainge and the Celtics could go with different permutations. Maybe they get in on the AD sweepstakes if for some reason AD is actually going to get moved. I want to talk about Jaxson Hayes sort of falling in our mock draft because the way that we configured this was mostly you guys picking on behalf of the teams, but also informing these decisions with your own sensibilities. So what's the likelihood here that you think that he falls this far?
I think it's certainly possible. You look at the value of centers in today's league, how it dissipates during the postseason. Hayes is somebody you're going to have to wait for him to contribute. He's going to be a long-term investment, not somebody who's going to play early. I mean, he played football in high school until he ended up switching to basketball full-time midway through. So he's a raw prospect, a great athlete, somebody who maybe becomes a Capella type long-term. I could easily see somebody like him falling. He could be a steal, but again, a swing, a guy you're taking a swing on and you could miss, but it's worth it with his athleticism.
And I mean, it's one of those things you look at like the middle of the draft, like Miami, Boston, Detroit, Orlando, Brooklyn, like none of them need centers. That's how guys fall pretty quick. All of a sudden it's like, well, he doesn't fit here either, well, we don't need him.
He doesn't fit anywhere, but he's a good prospect. He's on the board, we'll take him. We go to OKC at 21.
Let's go with Tyler Hero, a wing from Kentucky. Think about what you need around Russell Westbrook. You need shooters. And Tyler Hero projects as a good shooter in today's league.
They could definitely use that. You and I have talked about this at length. When Paul George, who had a really good season, is your most prolific and efficient three-point shooter 2 years in a row, he could probably use some other guys to take some of the load off.
Oh, I remember, I think in the post-game press conference, and then Presti was like, man, we missed Alex Sabrina so bad. Like, it was like, that's not a good sign.
I mean, we're not laughing at you, Alex Sabrinas, but we're laughing a little bit. No, they could absolutely use shooting, and I think that you could pretty much say that about like every team in the league, but especially with OKC. Again, 2 years ago, they weren't just using Paul George in that role, they were using Carmelo Anthony as like, go over there and stand in the quarter because we need somebody to shoot threes and you're at least like semi-capable of that. So I think this pick makes sense for them. We go to 22, the Celtics again, look at that.
So I'm gonna double up and take Bol here, another big man who fell in our mock. I think this is another pick where it's like, whoever wants him can come get him. I don't see Boston keeping 3 rookies in their roster. And Bol, so he's 7'3", I think. Crazy tall, crazy good shooter. Questions can do anything else. He's not very fast, not very mobile. But that size, that shooting ability, he'll stick in the league somewhere.
I got my fingers crossed for him. I have a soft spot for the Bol family, for Manute and his guys from his time in Philadelphia. Again, my question to you, depending on which mock draft I'm looking at, and really I only focus on the Ringer one, but there are other mock drafts out there, not as good, that have Bol going a little bit higher. So what's the chances that he falls?
Injury, medical, or potential personality concern. There's worries about how much he actually loves basketball, how hard he actually works off the court. So that on top of medical concern with his beanpole legs, his injury history, there's a lot of red flags there for him to fall in the drafts.
Yeah, has to put on a lot of weight.
How much can he handle is a big question though.
Utah Jazz at number 23.
Let's go with Nick Claxton, a big man from Georgia who really ran the point last year for that offense. He's a versatile center who shined at the NBA Combine earlier this month with his defensive versatility and his ability to potentially space the floor. He shot only 28% this season from 3 for Georgia, only 64% from the free throw line. But if you're projecting 5-6 years down the road when he's in his prime years, 25, 26 years old, there's a potential for him to be a good shooter who can also, again, attack off the dribble, make the right pass, and switch screens defensively.
It would not surprise me if he moves up in these mocks.
Yeah, you guys are saying he's a riser. And would you see him like as sort of a change of pace for Gobert?
Yeah, I mean, just some more, yeah, he's got a little more shooting ability, possibly perimeter offensive ability. All
right, that's enough Jazz talk. We get to what people have really been sitting around waiting for. I know everybody's super excited about. Number 24, your Philadelphia 76ers.
I've got a good pick for you here,
Yours
guys.
And mine.
So, Kevin Porter Jr. from USC. This is a guy, all talent in the world, very athletic, can score pretty easily. And all the questions about him are off the court. So he was suspended for most seasons at USC. I just feel like Philly's a team that's in a spot where they like to gamble anyways, and let's go for a high upside guy and see what happens.
So they absolutely need shooting. They need somebody to come off the bench because that bench was an abject disaster at the end of the regular season and certainly in the playoffs when they were hyper thin. One of the comps, J.R. Smith, I don't know if I'm like oddly excited about that or terrified. Which one should I be? Both?
It depends on if it's game 1 of the finals or not.
Okay. If it's game 1 of the finals, we're in a pretty good situation.
You're in a pretty good situation unless he rebounds the ball and dribbles out the clock.
Yeah, don't do that, Kevin Porter.
I think with Kevin Porter, he's just, again, another upside pick where you look at his body, you look at his size, he could potentially be a big, large scoring wing. But he's so raw, and I'm not sure he's somebody who's going to contribute early. But again, in a long-term investment for a Sixers team that already has a lot of guys in their rotation and maybe needs some cap space to get a bench.
Yeah, that would be nice. Any kind of bench after their first 5 guys would be fantastic. We go to number 25. The Portland Trailblazers, who could use, they've needed a wing, basically, I'm going to check my notes here, always. but they also, there's some bigs on the board here. Which way do you think they go?
Let's go with Luguentz Dort, freshman from Arizona State. Again, one of those guys, he has a baseline of skills to have a long-term career with a 6'9" wingspan, a strong, beefy frame. More beef. He looks like he's built like an NFL defensive end. Okay. I think with him, he's a potential high-end comp, Oladipo. More likely a Marcus Smart type, but not quite the same level defensively because Marcus's mind is just on another level. But yeah, Dort, Marcus again, switchable defender who can do some things off the dribble for you. But like, again, so many guys in this draft, what level does he reach as a jump shooter?
When we were talking about this in our pre-show meeting, when you guys brought up he could be Depot at one end or Marcus Smart at the other, like my brain kind of short-circuited because I see them as sort of different players in that Marcus Smart obviously is an incredible defender, but Victor Oladipo has significant offensive skill set. So which end of the spectrum?
See, it was funny because when I heard that, I was like, well, Luguentz thinks he's Oladipo. The way he played last year, like he was just taking terrible shots, wanting the ball in his hands. So it's more like for him, can he like handle a smaller role and not take bad shots? Because if you're on a team like Portland, you got to move the ball, you have to accept your role. Because if you're taking shots from Damon City, you're on the bench really fast.
Marcus Smart thinks he's Oladipo too, though.
They need more people in Portland for sure. Either way, so hopefully that'll work out for them. Number 26, we go back to Cleveland and the Cavaliers.
I'm gonna give him Keldon Johnson, the third Kentucky player. He's a pretty safe 3-and-D guy. I think they need guys who can. They need players. I think he's a guy who can fill a role right away and just shoots threes, kind of defends.
Again, it's the Cavs and Godspeed, Cleveland. I don't know. I was in Cleveland for what felt like 5 straight postseasons, and part of my soul is still there.
You have all your main restaurants picked out there that you always hit up?
Yeah, all 2 of them I went. All of a sudden people are going, send it to kevin.o'connor@theringer.com.
That's okay.
He gets a lot of fan mail though, so who knows.
Brooklyn Nets at number 27.
Let's go with Dylan Windler, a forward from Belmont. Windler is somebody who reminds me a lot of Bojan Bogdanovic, who exploded this season for the Pacers with his. Windler is a guy who shot the hell out of the ball, is 4 years at Belmont, 43% this past season, can spot up for you, can run off screens, can hit off shots off handoffs, and he's a pretty good athlete too, can pass a little bit. I think Windler overall looks like a guy who's going to be a solid overall NBA player. That works for the Nets.
I see the little glimmer in your eye. You get excited about this. This is a KOC special. You're not as high on him.
I kind of feel he's pretty one-dimensional as a shooter. I'm not sure he's going to be able to stay on the floor athletically on defense.
The gauntlet has been thrown down. Only one ringer.
Our Dylan Windler takes.
Only one ringer staffer will be right about this. Number 28, the Golden State Warriors. They just need a lot of things.
This is the pick I'm excited about. I think I got him taking Carson Edwards from Purdue. I think he'd be perfect in Golden State. They could use a guy to behind Steph Curry. This is a guy who can score a lot of points really quickly. We saw in the NCAA tournament. I think he had like 40 points in 3 straight games. Like he gets buckets, and that bench could use the help.
Yeah, and I want good things for Golden State, just once. 29, the Spurs.
Let's go with Jalen McDaniels here, a big man forward from San Diego State. This might be a little bit high for McDaniels. He's projected in the 40s from a lot of people, but I have him 17th on my board, and I think if you're San Antonio, similar to the Horton-Tucker pick at 19, he's an upside play. Somebody moving forward could play next to Jakob Poeltl, somebody who could develop within that offense, within that system. He's a smart overall player, can pass for you, can space the floor, switch defensively. He has a lot of the things that you want in today's league, but he needs to get significantly strong in order to survive defensively.
Yeah, Kyle Kuzma and Jonathan Isaac comps, I kind of like those. The last pick goes to you, my friend, the Milwaukee Bucks. Could use a couple of different things. Which way do you think they go? I'm
going to give him Chuma Okeke, Auburn forward. I think he's a guy, he tore his knee in the tournament, and I think if he had been healthy, he'd be moving higher up the board. And if he's a 3-and-D guy, 6'8", can really shoot it, very smart player. And if you're Milwaukee, you have no real needs right now. You can afford to let a rookie kind of develop, get himself back together, and play him 2 years from now.
Yeah, is that the way you say it too, where they don't necessarily need something right now, so they can take the luxury of just letting him convalesce, and then they bring him in when he's healthy?
He could be a nice guy who comes back for you in, March, April, and have him for a playoff run. Okeke is somebody, like Tjarks said, seems like he would have risen up the boards when you consider the importance of having a guy who can defend multiple positions.
It feels very Sixers-ish to just redshirt a guy right away, so good luck with that, Milwaukee Bucks fans. We're going to have a ton of NBA draft content on TheRinger.com as the draft approaches. These 2 guys, along with Danny Chow, have all of that stuff on their mock drafts and their big boards that they're going to be updating regularly, so be sure to check those things out. For Jonathan Tjarks and Kevin O'Connor, I'm John Gonzalez. Thanks for watching.